Doctor visited her son's grave and saw an orphaned boy crying on it. Dr. Jennifer Parker walked slowly through the pathways of Pine Grove Cemetery in Columbus, carrying a weight in her chest that no medical degree could heal. It had been 3 months since she'd last visited this place, but today something had drawn her back. As she approached the grave where her son, Ethan, just 8 years old, lay at rest, her heart nearly stopped. There was an unfamiliar boy kneeling on the headstone, sobbing with a bouquet of colorful flowers in his hands. The boy looked about 12 or 13, wearing a worn-out gray hoodie, crying as if he'd known Ethan his whole life. "I'm sorry, but..." Jennifer hesitated, her voice choked. "This is my son's grave." The boy looked up with red, tear-filled eyes. His messy brown hair framed a face that carried far too much sorrow for his age. "Are you Ethan's mom?" he asked, wiping his nose with his sleeve. Jennifer's legs trembled. How did this boy know her son's name? "I am... But how do you..." "My name's Jacob, Doctor. I knew Ethan." The boy's voice was hoarse from crying. "He saved my life." "What do you mean?" Jennifer stepped closer, her heart racing. "Ethan was only 8 when he left us." Jacob looked down at the flowers in his hands, then back into the doctor's eyes. "You don't know everything that happened that day, do you? At the hospital, I mean." Jennifer felt the world spin. The hospital, the accident, the endless hours waiting for news, the final conversation with the doctor who said there was nothing more they could do. "What are you saying?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Ethan. He asked to donate his organs." Jacob touched his own chest. "The heart beating inside me was his." Jennifer's bag slipped from her hands, scattering her belongings on the ground. She steadied herself against the headstone to keep from falling. She'd never been told who received Ethan's organs. Hospital protocol kept donors and recipients anonymous. That's impossible. They can't share that information." Jennifer struggled to process what she was hearing. "I know they can't. That's why I came here in secret. For 3 months, I've come every day to talk to him." Jacob pointed at the grave. "I needed to meet the mother of the boy who gave me a second chance at life." Jennifer looked at Jacob differently now. She could see he was too thin, too pale, with a scar running down his neck, likely from surgery. "Were you very sick?" "Since I was little. I was born with a heart condition. The doctors said I wouldn't live past 10, but here I am, 13. Jacob smiled for the first time. All thanks to Ethan. Dear listener, if you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Jennifer bent down to gather her things, her hands shaking. Among the scattered items was a drawing Ethan had made shortly before the accident, a picture of 2 boys playing, one younger, one older. "Jacob, tell me something. Do you have family?" The boy lowered his eyes. "I have a grandma, Mrs. Margaret. She's taken care of me since they weren't around anymore." He paused. "She works hard to pay for the medicine I still need. Sometimes there's not even enough money for the bus fare here." "Is that why you walk?" Jennifer noticed his sneakers were worn and caked with dirt. "Sometimes, yeah. But I don't mind. I need to come here. It's like Ethan's still with me, you know? When my heart beats harder, I feel like he's trying to tell me something." Jennifer felt tears streaming down her face. All these months she had blamed herself for losing Ethan, questioning every medical decision, every moment she didn't spend with him. Now, discovering that part of her son was alive, saving another boy, stirred something deep in her soul. "Jacob, you said your grandmother works a lot. What does she do?" "She cleans houses. She leaves early in the morning and only comes back at night." Jacob carefully arranged the flowers on the grave. "Since the surgery, she's been afraid to leave me alone, but she has to work. Sometimes I stay at the neighbor's house, Mrs. Betty." "And school? Are you studying?" Jacob hesitated before answering. "I had to stop when I got really sick. Now I'm trying to go back, but it's hard. I missed a lot and the other kids sometimes stare at my scar." Jennifer's chest tightened. Here was a boy carrying her son's heart, facing struggles no child should face alone. "Jacob, would you like to see some things that belong to Ethan?" The boy's eyes lit up. "Really? You'd let me?" Of course. In fact, I think Ethan would have wanted you to have some of his things. Jennifer wiped her tears. Do you have time now? I live nearby. Yeah. Mrs. Margaret doesn't get home until after 6. As they walked down the tree-lined street of the Westwood neighborhood, Jennifer watched Jacob discreetly. There was something in the way he walked, the way he smiled, that faintly reminded her of Ethan. It wasn't just a grieving mother's imagination. There was a real connection there. Jacob, can I ask you a personal question? Sure, doctor. How did you find out who the donor was? That's confidential information. Jacob stopped walking and looked at his feet. I kind of found out by accident. He seemed nervous. On the day of the surgery, I overheard a nurse talking in the hallway. She mentioned a boy who wasn't here anymore, and that his mother was a doctor. She said his name, Ethan Parker. And you held on to that all this time? I did. After the surgery, when I got better, I started looking into it. I found out there was an 8-year-old Ethan Parker who had been buried at Pine Grove Cemetery. Jacob started walking again. It took me 3 weeks to gather the courage to come here the first time. Jennifer stopped in front of a light blue single-story house with a small garden in front. This is it. Please come in. The house was simple but cozy. In the living room, there were several photos of Ethan scattered around. Jacob stopped in front of each one, as if meeting an old friend. He looked really happy, Jacob commented, looking at a photo of Ethan laughing on the playground. He was. Ethan had a contagious joy. He was always making up games, making everyone laugh. Jennifer felt a sad smile form on her lips. Would you like some water? Or maybe a snack? Some water would be nice, thanks. While Jennifer went to the kitchen, Jacob kept looking at the photos. In one, Ethan was dressed as a superhero, wearing a red cape with a proud smile. Did he like superheroes? Jacob asked when Jennifer returned with the water. He loved them. He said when he grew up he'd save people just like the heroes in the movies. Jennifer sat on the couch, gesturing for Jacob to do the same. Ironically, he ended up saving you, in a way he never imagined. Jacob sipped the water slowly. Dr. Jennifer, can I tell you something? Promise you won't think it's weird? Of course, go ahead. Since the surgery, I've had strange dreams. I dream about places I've never been, games I've never played. It's like I have memories that aren't mine. Jacob paused, watching Jennifer's expression. The doctor said it's normal to have confusing dreams after major surgery, but I think it's different. Jennifer felt a shiver. She had read about rare cases where organ recipients reported dreams or sensations that seemed connected to their donors, but she had always dismissed them as coincidence or post-surgical trauma. What kind of places do you dream about? An old-looking school with a big courtyard and a tree in the middle, a room with dinosaur wallpaper, and there's always a woman in a lab coat who hugs me and says, everything will be okay. Jacob looked at Jennifer. When I saw you today at Pine Grove Cemetery, I recognized you from my dreams. The cup nearly slipped from Jennifer's hands. Ethan had attended Lincoln Elementary School, which had exactly a courtyard with a large tree in the center, and his room had dinosaur wallpaper she had put up herself. Jacob. Jennifer tried to keep her voice steady. Describe the school in your dream in more detail. There's a wooden staircase right in the middle that leads to the second floor. The courtyard is dirt, and there's a huge tree where the kids sit in the shade during recess. Jacob closed his eyes, as if seeing it all again. And there's always a teacher with curly hair who smiles a lot. Jennifer pressed a hand to her chest. That was the exact description of Ethan's school. And the curly-haired teacher was Mrs. Wilson, her son's favorite teacher. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. Jacob, would you like to visit that school? Can I? The boy's face lit up. Of course. In fact, I think you should see some places that were important to Ethan. And maybe you could even go back to school there. But I don't live in this neighborhood, and Mrs. Margaret can't afford transportation every day. Jennifer felt she was facing an opportunity to honor Ethan's memory in a way she'd never imagined. "Jacob, tell me something. Would your grandmother like to talk to me?" "I think so. She always says she's grateful to the doctors who took care of me." Jacob hesitated, but she's very proud. She doesn't like accepting help. "I understand, but maybe she'll see things differently if we explain the situation. Can you give me your address?" Jacob scribbled the address on a piece of paper. They lived in Oakwood Gardens, on the other side of town, an area Jennifer knew was home to low-income families. "Come here, let me show you Ethan's things." Jennifer led Jacob to her son's room. She had kept everything exactly as he left it: storybooks on the shelf, toys neatly arranged in the closet, and on the wall, drawings Ethan had made. Jacob stood frozen in the doorway as if stepping into sacred ground. "You can come in. It's okay." The boy walked slowly, taking in every detail. He stopped in front of the bookshelf and picked up a book of fairy tales. "I know this story," he said, flipping through the pages. "It's about a prince who saves a princess, right?" Ethan loved that story. "I read it to him every night before bed." Jennifer stepped closer. "How do you know it?" "I can't explain. It's like I've heard it before. It's like..." Jacob kept turning the pages. "There's a part where the prince gets sick and the princess takes care of him, right?" Jennifer nodded, amazed. That specific part had always been Ethan's favorite. "Jacob, I want you to have this book." "Really?" The boy's eyes sparkled. "Really. And there's one more thing." Jennifer opened the closet and pulled out a blue backpack, still holding some school supplies inside. This was Ethan's backpack. There are pencils, notebooks, and some things he used at school. "If you want to go back to studying, maybe this could help." Jacob hugged the backpack to his chest, emotional. "Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. I'll take good care of everything." "I know you will." Jennifer felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. "Jacob, tomorrow's Saturday. How about I visit you and your grandmother? I'd love to meet her. She'd be really happy, but our house is very simple." "I don't mind that. What matters are the people who live there." Jacob spent the rest of the afternoon at Jennifer's house, listening to stories about Ethan, looking at more photos, and exploring every corner that had been important to his donor. As the sun began to set, Jennifer offered to drive him home. On the way to Oakwood Gardens, Jacob shared more about his life with Mrs. Margaret, how hard it had been growing up sick, and the dreams he now had for the future since he was healthy. "You know what I want most?" he said, gazing out the car window. "I want to study to be a doctor, like you, so I can help other kids who are sick like I was." "That's a beautiful dream, Jacob, and with determination, you can make it happen." Ethan wanted to be a superhero. Now I want to be a doctor. I think deep down we want the same thing, to save people. Jennifer blinked several times to hold back tears. The wisdom of this 13-year-old boy amazed her. They arrived at a dirt road lined with modest houses, some still under construction. Jacob pointed to a small light green house with a tiny front yard where a few plants grew. "That's it. Mrs. Margaret should be getting home from work now." "Jacob, before we go in, I want to tell you something." Jennifer turned to him. "Meeting you today changed my life. For the last 3 months, I've felt lost, unable to understand why Ethan had to leave so soon. Now, I see he's still alive through you. And I see that I'm not alone in the world, that I carry a part of Ethan with me." Jacob smiled. "And maybe I have a second mom too." Jennifer felt her heart warm in a way it hadn't in months. "If your grandmother allows it, I'd love to be part of your life, Jacob." They got out of the car and walked to the front door. An older woman with grey hair, wearing a simple blue dress and slippers, was coming up the side street. She carried 2 heavy bags and looked tired. "Mrs. Margaret?" Jacob ran to her. "You won't believe what happened today." The woman looked at Jennifer with curiosity and a hint of suspicion. That was natural, the doctor thought. A well-dressed stranger arriving at her home in a car. "Jacob, who is this young lady?" "Mrs. Margaret, this is Dr. Jennifer. She's..." Jacob hesitated, searching for the right words. She's the mother of the boy who gave me my new heart. Mrs. Margaret nearly dropped her bags. She looked from Jacob to Jennifer, then back at Jacob. What do you mean? How did you meet? It's a long story, Mrs. Margaret. Jennifer stepped forward. Would you like to talk? Can I help you with those bags? Oh, no need, dear. Please come in. Jacob helped the doctor. The house was small but very clean and tidy. The living room had a simple sofa, an old television, and a few plants Mrs. Margaret lovingly cared for. On the walls hung several photos of Jacob at different ages, many of them taken in hospitals. Please sit. I'll make some coffee. Mrs. Margaret headed to the kitchen. Don't trouble yourself, Mrs. Margaret. I came to talk to you about Jacob. The woman stopped and turned, her expression worried. Did he do something wrong? I know he's been sneaking off to the cemetery, but no, Jacob hasn't done anything wrong, Jennifer reassured her quickly. In fact, because of him, I discovered something very important. Jacob told his grandmother how he had met Jennifer at the cemetery and about all the things he had discovered that afternoon. Mrs. Margaret listened quietly, her eyes brimming with tears. Doctor, you have no idea what this boy means to me, she said, drying her eyes with a dish towel. When the doctors said he needed a new heart, I thought I might lose him too. Too? Jennifer noticed her choice of words. Jacob lost his parents when he was 5. They were coming home from work and, well, there was an accident. I'm his mother's sister, and ever since I've raised him as if he were my own son. And his heart. When did you discover the problem? He was born with a defect. The doctors said it was hereditary from his father's side. For years, we did treatments, took medication, but his heart kept getting weaker. Mrs. Margaret sat down beside Jacob. When we got the spot for the surgery, it felt like a miracle. Mrs. Margaret, may I ask you something? Jennifer hesitated. You work a lot, Jacob told me. It must be hard managing everything alone. I clean 4 houses during the week. It's exhausting, but it's what I have to do. Jacob needs regular checkups, medicine, good food. She sighed. Sometimes it's tight, but God always finds a way. What about Jacob's schooling? Oh, that breaks my heart. Mrs. Margaret shook her head. He was a good student before he got really sick. Now that he's better, he wants to go back, but it's complicated. The school nearby isn't great, and the better ones are too far. Jennifer looked at Jacob, who was listening quietly, flipping through the books he'd been given. Mrs. Margaret, I'd like to make you an offer. What kind of offer? Suspicion crept back into her voice. I'd like to help Jacob with his education, not as charity, but as a way to honor my son's memory. Jennifer chose her words carefully. Jacob has Ethan's heart. In a way, that makes us family. Mrs. Margaret was silent for a long moment. Doctor, you're very kind, but I've always raised Jacob not to depend on others' generosity. We work hard for what we have. And I respect that deeply, Jennifer leaned forward. But sometimes accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Jacob has the potential to be a doctor, just like he told me. But he needs opportunities. It's true, Grandma, Jacob spoke up for the first time in minutes. I want to study. I want to graduate. I want to help other kids like me. But doing it alone will be really hard. Mrs. Margaret looked at her grandson, then at Jennifer. What exactly are you proposing? First, I'd like Jacob to go back to school. I know a good one nearby where my son used to go. I can help with enrollment and transportation, Jennifer said slowly. Second, he needs to keep up with his medical care. I work at University Medical Center and can make sure he gets the best treatment. And in return? In return for nothing. Jennifer smiled. I just want to see Jacob grow up and achieve his dreams. It's the best way I know to keep Ethan's memory alive. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, Mrs. Margaret stood and walked to the window, looking out at the backyard where she had hung laundry to dry. Jacob, come here. She called her grandson over. Look at me, is this really what you want? To go back to school even if it's hard? Yeah, Grandma, it's what I want most in the world. And you, Doctor? Mrs. Margaret turned to Jennifer. Are you sure you won't regret this? Raising a child is a lot of work. I'm absolutely certain, besides, it wouldn't just be me taking care of him. Jacob would also help me a lot. Jennifer smiled. These past few months have been very hard for me. Meeting Jacob gave me a new purpose. Then it's settled. Mrs. Margaret went back to the living room, but with one condition. What is it? Jennifer and Jacob asked at the same time. I remain the one responsible for him. You can help, but the important decisions go through me. Jacob is my grandson, and I want him to keep being raised with the values I tried to teach. Of course, Mrs. Margaret, I don't want to replace you. I just want to add to what you've done. Then we have a deal. Mrs. Margaret extended her hand to Jennifer. May God bless this union. Jacob jumped off the couch and hugged both women at once. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, Dr. Jennifer. You don't know how happy I am. Now tell me something, Jacob. Jennifer pulled back from the hug. On Monday, you'll start at your new school. Are you ready? I'm a little nervous, but I really want to try. It's normal to be nervous. Ethan used to get nervous on the first day of school too. Jennifer smiled, but he always said a phrase I learned to love. What phrase? When the heart is in the right place, everything works out. Jennifer gently touched Jacob's chest. And your heart is definitely in the right place. Jacob smiled, placing his hand over his heart. You know, Doctor, sometimes I feel it beating harder, like it's happy. I bet it is. Ethan always wanted to help people. Now he's helping you live, and you're helping me find a reason to keep going. That night, after Jennifer left, Jacob stayed awake, looking out his bedroom window. He'd gained more than a backpack and books that day. He'd gained a new family and a new chance to dream. Across town, Jennifer was also awake, looking at the photos of Ethan scattered around the living room. For the first time in months, she didn't just feel longing, she felt gratitude. Ethan was gone, but his generosity was still saving lives and creating connections she'd never imagined possible. The following Monday, Jacob woke up early, took a shower, and put on the outfit Mrs. Margaret had set aside especially for his first day of school. Ethan's blue backpack was ready by the door, with all his supplies neatly packed. Jennifer arrived promptly at 7 in the morning. They'd agreed she would take Jacob to school for the first few days until he got used to the routine. Good morning, champ. Ready for the big day? Ready, Jacob replied, but Jennifer noticed he looked pale. Nervous? A little. It's been a long time since I've been to school. What if I can't keep up with the class? Jacob, look at me. Jennifer knelt to meet his eyes. You're a smart and brave boy. You went through heart surgery and recovered. Going back to school will be a piece of cake compared to that. That's true. Jacob took a deep breath. Let's go. Lincoln Elementary School was exactly how Jacob had dreamed it would be. The courtyard with the big tree in the center, the wooden staircase, the hallways covered in colorful posters made by the students. It's just like my dream, Jacob whispered to Jennifer. Ethan loved this school, and I'm sure you'll love it too. Teacher Mrs. Wilson, the same one Ethan had mentioned in Jacob's dreams, welcomed the boy with a warm smile. Jennifer had spoken to her the day before, briefly explaining the situation. Jacob, welcome. I've prepared a special spot for you. The desk was near the window, where he could see the tree in the courtyard. Jacob sat down and looked around. The other students watched him curiously, but without hostility. Everyone, this is Jacob, our new classmate. Let's give him a warm welcome. Hi, Jacob, the children said in unison. Jennifer felt her chest grow warm. Jacob was right where he belonged. I'll leave you here. I'll come pick you up at 5, okay? Okay, thank you for everything, Dr. Jennifer. You don't have to thank me. We're family now. Jacob's first day at school went better than he'd expected. During recess, some classmates came over to talk, curious about where he'd come from. Jacob told them he'd been sick, but didn't go into details about the surgery. Have you studied here before? A girl named Lucy asked. It seems like you know the school. No, it's my first time, but it feels like I've been here before. That's weird, Lucy smiled. But I'm glad you're here. We needed another boy in our class to balance out the girls. During English class, teacher Mrs. Wilson asked the students to write about their dreams for the future. Jacob picked up the pencil that had once been Ethan's and began writing. "My dream is to become a doctor so I can help children who are sick like I was. I want them to know there's always hope, even when things seem hard. I also want to honor the memory of a brave boy who gave me a second chance at life." When Mrs. Wilson read Jacob's essay while grading, her eyes welled up. There was something in those words that moved her deeply. "Jacob, you wrote something very beautiful. Would you like to share it with the class?" Jacob hesitated for a moment, then stood up and read his essay aloud. The room fell silent. Even the younger children sensed there was something special about this new boy's story. "That's a very beautiful story, Jacob," Mrs. Wilson said, "and I'm sure you'll make that dream come true." When Jennifer came to pick Jacob up at the end of the day, she found a beaming boy. "How was it?" "It was great. The kids are nice, Mrs. Wilson is just like I imagined, and I kept up with all the lessons." Jacob climbed into the car excitedly. There was just one strange thing. "What?" "During recess, I was sitting under the tree, and a girl came up to me. She said there used to be a boy who always sat there and that he wasn't at school anymore. She asked if I knew him." Jennifer swallowed hard. The tree had always been Ethan's favorite spot during recess. "What did you say?" "I said yes, I knew him. Not in person, but in my heart." Jacob smiled. I don't think she really understood, but she smiled back. "Jacob, are you okay? Doesn't it make you sad to think about these things?" "I'm not sad. I'm happy. It's like Ethan is showing me I'm in the right place." In the days that followed, Jacob quickly settled into the school routine. He made friends, joined activities, and proved to be a dedicated student. The teachers were impressed by his maturity and determination. Jennifer, meanwhile, began rebuilding her own life. She returned to work at the University Medical Center with renewed energy, and whenever she had free time, she spent it with Jacob and Mrs. Margaret. Their home had become a second family to her. One afternoon, 2 weeks after his first day, Jacob came home with news. "Grandma, Dr. Jennifer, you won't believe what happened today." "What is it, sweetheart?" Mrs. Margaret asked, preparing dinner. "Mrs. Wilson said there's going to be a science fair at school. Each student has to present a project about something they think is important." "And what's your project going to be?" Jennifer asked, intrigued. "I want to talk about organ donation. I want to explain to the kids how it saves lives." Jacob was excited. "Can I use my story as an example?" Jennifer felt a lump in her throat, but not from sadness. It was heartwarming to see how Jacob was turning his experience into something positive. "Of course you can. And if you'd like, I can help you with the medical information." "Really, that would be great." "Jacob," Mrs. Margaret approached, "are you sure you want to share your story with the whole school? Won't it be hard?" "No, Grandma. I think it's important. If a child at school ever needs an organ, or if someone in their family has to make a decision about donation, they'll remember my presentation." "You're right, my boy. You're becoming a very wise young man." Over the next few weeks, Jennifer and Jacob worked together on the science fair project. She explained in simple terms how the donation process worked, which organs could be donated, and how it saved lives. Jacob made colorful posters, created explanatory drawings, and even wrote a small booklet on the subject. The most impressive thing was the passion with which he spoke about it. "Dr. Jennifer, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, Jacob." "How did you manage to make the decision to donate Ethan's organs? It must have been so hard." Jennifer stopped writing and looked at Jacob. It was the first time he had asked her that directly. "It was the hardest decision of my life, but at the same time, it was the easiest." She paused. "Ethan always said he wanted to help people. When the doctors explained the situation to me, I knew right away it was what he would have wanted me to do." "Have you ever regretted it?" "Never. Especially after meeting you." Jennifer smiled. "Knowing that part of Ethan is still alive, helping you achieve your dreams, gives me a peace I never thought possible. Thank you for making that choice. Thank you for giving me a family. Thank you for everything." Jacob stood up and hugged Jennifer. In that moment, they both felt Ethan was there with them, approving everything that was happening. On the day of the science fair, the school was full of families, students, and teachers. Jacob was nervous but determined. He had rehearsed his presentation dozens of times with Jennifer and Mrs. Margaret. When it was his turn, he stepped onto the small stage set up in the schoolyard, right next to the tree that had become his favorite spot. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jacob, and today I'm going to talk about something very important: organ donation. The audience fell silent. It was a serious topic for a 13-year-old. A few months ago, I was very sick. My heart wasn't working right, and the doctors said I needed a new heart to keep living. Jacob spoke clearly without showing any nerves. A very generous family decided to donate their son's organs, and one of those organs came to me. In the audience, Jennifer had tears in her eyes but smiled proudly. The boy who gave me his heart was named Ethan. He was 8 years old and loved superheroes. He always wanted to help people, and even after leaving this world, he managed to save several lives through the organs he donated. Jacob showed the posters he had made, explaining how donation worked, how many people were waiting for an organ, and how one person could save up to 8 lives. Ethan went to this school. He used to sit under that tree during recess, played in this same yard where I'm talking to you now. Jacob pointed to the tree. In a way, I feel like he's still here, living through me and all the other people who were helped by his family's generosity. The audience was completely captivated. Even the younger children understood the importance of what Jacob was saying. That's why I want to ask you all to talk to your families about organ donation. It's not a sad topic. It's a topic of hope. It's about giving others the chance to keep living, dreaming, and achieving amazing things. Jacob finished his presentation by showing a photo he had taken with Jennifer and Mrs. Margaret the week before. The three of them were smiling, and he held the book of fairy tales he had received from Ethan. Today, I have a bigger family, new dreams, and the certainty that I can make a difference in other people's lives. All of this thanks to the generous heart of a boy named Ethan and the courage of a mother who, even in the hardest moment of her life, decided to turn her pain into hope for others. The audience erupted in applause. Many people were crying, moved by Jacob's maturity and sensitivity. Teacher Mrs. Wilson approached the microphone. Jacob, your presentation was extraordinary. I'm sure you've touched the hearts of everyone here today. Teacher, can I say one more thing? Of course. Jacob took the microphone again. I want to dedicate this presentation to the memory of Ethan Parker, who gave me more than a new heart. He gave me a new life. And to Dr. Jennifer, who taught me that family isn't just who we're born with, but also who we choose to love. In the audience, Jennifer couldn't stop crying. Mrs. Margaret was by her side, also emotional, holding her hand. That boy is turning into an admirable man, whispered Mrs. Margaret. He has Ethan's heart, but the wisdom is all his, Jennifer replied. After the science fair, several families approached Jacob to congratulate him and ask questions about organ donation. One mother mentioned she had never thought about it before, but would now talk to her family about becoming donors. Jacob, you may have saved several lives today, just with your words, said the school principal. I hope so. That's what Ethan would do. That night, the three of them had dinner together at Mrs. Margaret's house. Jacob was beaming over the success of his presentation, but mostly happy that he had honored Ethan's memory in such a special way. You know, Dr. Jennifer, Jacob said as he helped clear the table, I've been thinking about something. What? You always say Ethan wanted to be a superhero, right? Yes, he always said that. I think he did it. Maybe not the way he imagined, but he saved my life and others. If that's not what a superhero does, I don't know what is. Jennifer felt her chest grow warm. Jacob was right. Ethan had become exactly what he always wanted to be. The following months brought a routine of peace and growth for everyone. Jacob continued excelling in school, Jennifer fully resumed her professional duties, and Mrs. Margaret, with the doctor's support in caring for her grandson, was able to reduce her workload. Jacob visibly grew, not just in height but in maturity and confidence. The transplanted heart worked perfectly, and regular medical checkups always brought good news. During a routine appointment, the cardiologist who had performed Jacob's surgery was impressed with the results. Jacob, your health is perfect. The heart is functioning as if it had always been yours. "Doctor, can I ask you something?" Jacob was sitting on the exam table, with Jennifer beside him. "Of course. Is it normal for me to feel a connection with the donor? Sometimes I feel like he's with me." The doctor glanced at Jennifer, then back at Jacob. "Jacob, medicine doesn't have an explanation for everything. There are many documented cases of recipients reporting sensations, dreams, or even personality changes after transplants." The doctor smiled. "What matters is that you're well and happy." "I am. Very happy. And you, Dr. Jennifer?" The doctor turned to her. "How are you handling all of this?" "Better than I ever imagined possible. Jacob brought a new meaning to my life." Jennifer looked affectionately at the boy. "It's as if Ethan sent me an adoptive son. It's a beautiful story, and you're a beautiful family too." Leaving the hospital, Jacob and Jennifer decided to stop by Pine Grove Cemetery. It had become their ritual to visit Ethan's grave at least once a week, always bringing flowers and sharing updates. "Ethan, you won't believe the grade I got in math this week," Jacob said to the headstone as if talking to a friend. "I got a 9. The teacher said you were good at math too." Jennifer smiled, watching Jacob. The boy had developed a very natural relationship with Ethan's memory, without trauma or excessive sadness. "Oh, and there's more news," Jacob continued. "Dr. Jennifer said that by the end of the year, I can start taking a prep course for med school. It's still a few years until college entrance exams, but I'm getting ready early." "Jacob's right, Ethan." Jennifer stepped closer to the headstone. "He's determined to be a doctor, and with that dedication, I'm sure he'll make it." They stayed there a few more minutes in thoughtful silence. Then Jacob had an idea. "Dr. Jennifer, what if we did something special to mark the 1-year anniversary of the surgery? What do you have in mind?" "We could organize talks about organ donation in other places, hospitals, schools, churches, to raise awareness." "That's a wonderful idea, Jacob. Let's talk to your grandmother about it." Mrs. Margaret not only approved the idea, but also offered to help organize. She had become an enthusiastic advocate for organ donation after seeing the transformation in her grandson's life. The first event they organized was at University Medical Center, where Jennifer worked. Jacob, now 14, had become an even more confident and eloquent speaker. "Good afternoon, everyone. Exactly 1 year ago, I was in this hospital, waiting for a miracle." Jacob began his speech to an audience of doctors, nurses, and patients' families. "Today, I'm here to talk about how that miracle happened, and how each of you can be part of similar miracles in others' lives." The response was even better than they expected. Several people signed up as organ donors after the talk, and some doctors asked Jacob and Jennifer to repeat the presentation at other hospitals. "Jacob, you have a gift for this," remarked a nurse who had cared for him during his stay. "I've never seen anyone talk about such a difficult subject with so much hope." "It's because I live that hope every day," Jacob smiled. "Every beat of my heart is proof that miracles are worth believing in." Over the following months, Jacob and Jennifer became a well-known duo at organ donation events around Columbus. Their story touched people in a special way, the mother who turned her grief into a mission, and the boy who literally carried another's heart. At one of these talks, a woman approached Jacob afterward. "Son, my boy has been waiting for a liver for 2 years. Hearing your story gave me hope that he can be saved too." "He will be saved, ma'am, I'm sure of it." Jacob held her hands. "And when it happens, remind him that miracles are real." Jennifer watched these interactions with growing maternal pride. Jacob was becoming exactly the kind of person Ethan would admire. On the first anniversary of the surgery, they held a special celebration. It wasn't a sad day, but one of gratitude. They had invited the doctors who had cared for Jacob, teacher Mrs. Wilson, some schoolmates, and of course Mrs. Margaret. "A year ago, I received the greatest gift of my life." Jacob addressed the guests gathered in Mrs. Margaret's backyard. It wasn't just a new heart, it was a new family, new dreams, and the chance to make a difference in the world. "Today, I want to announce a decision I made with the support of my grandmother and Dr. Jennifer." Jacob looked at the 2 most important women in his life. "I've decided that when I graduate from medical school, I'll specialize in pediatric cardiology." I want to care for children with heart problems, just like I had." The audience applauded enthusiastically. It was the perfect decision for someone who had lived both sides of the experience, as a patient and now a future doctor. "And there's one more thing." Jacob grinned mischievously. "With Dr. Jennifer's help, I'm writing a book about my experience. We're going to call it The Heart That Unites Families." Jennifer couldn't hold back her tears. Jacob hadn't told her about the book. It was a surprise he'd prepared. "The idea is to donate part of the book's profits to hospitals that perform transplants, to help other families going through what we went through." Mrs. Margaret stepped closer to her grandson and hugged him tightly. "My boy, you make me prouder every day. That's because I learned from the best grandmother in the world." Jacob returned the hug. "And from the best second mom I could ever have." Jennifer joined the embrace, and for a moment the three stood there, united by the gratitude and love that had blossomed from such a difficult situation. That night, after all the guests had left, Jacob, Jennifer, and Mrs. Margaret stayed in the backyard talking under the stars. "You know, Dr. Jennifer," Jacob said, lying on the grass, "sometimes I look up at the sky and imagine Ethan up there, proud of everything that's happening. I'm sure he is proud." Jennifer sat in a chair, watching Jacob. "You're honoring his memory in a way I never thought possible. And the best part is our family keeps growing." Jacob sat up. "Teacher Mrs. Wilson told me there's a new student at school who just had a kidney transplant. I thought I'd talk to her so she knows she's not alone." "What a beautiful idea, Jacob. You could be an example for her." "That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Show people that it's possible to live well after a transplant, and that it's worth fighting for our dreams." Mrs. Margaret, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. "Jacob, when you were little and so sick, I sometimes wondered why God was making you suffer so much." She paused. "Now I understand you had to go through all of it to become the special person you are today, so you could help others going through the same pain. Grandma, do you think everything happens for a reason?" "I do, my boy. And the reason for your story is clear: to teach that love can overcome any hardship, and sometimes we lose people so we can find others." Jennifer felt Mrs. Margaret had perfectly summed up everything they'd lived through the past year. She had lost Ethan but found Jacob. He had lost his original heart but gained a new family. A few months later, Jacob received news that thrilled him. The book he was writing with Jennifer had been accepted by a publisher and would be released the following year. "Dr. Jennifer, do you really think our story will help others?" "I'm absolutely certain, Jacob. Our story is about hope, family, and overcoming the impossible. Those are things everyone connects with. And the money we make will really go to hospitals." "Of course, that's what we agreed on. We want the book to be a way to give back for all the help we received." Jacob was now in his sophomore year of high school, 15 years old, and still one of the top students in his class. His determination to become a doctor only grew stronger with time. During a biology lesson about the cardiovascular system, the teacher asked Jacob to explain to the class how a heart transplant worked. He accepted the invitation naturally. "A heart transplant is necessary when a person's heart is too sick and can't pump blood properly anymore," Jacob explained, pointing to the heart poster on the wall. "The procedure is complex, but when it works, it's like getting a second chance at life." "Jacob, could you tell the class about your own experience?" the teacher asked. "Sure. Before the surgery, I got tired really easily, couldn't play like other kids, and always had to take medicine," Jacob said without hesitation. "After the surgery, it was like I was born again. I can run, play soccer, study without getting exhausted. It's an amazing feeling." "And you're not afraid your heart might stop working?" a classmate asked. "I'm not afraid because I know I'm well taken care of. I get regular checkups, take my meds on time, and my family supports me completely," Jacob smiled. "Besides, this heart has already proven it's strong. It belonged to a very brave boy." After class, several students came up to Jacob to ask more questions. Their interest wasn't morbid curiosity, but genuine admiration for his courage. "Jacob, you're our inspiration at school," said Lucy, who had become one of his closest friends. Whenever I complain about something, I remember your story and realize my problems are small. Thanks, Lucy. But remember, everyone has their own challenges. The important thing is to never give up. Jacob's philosophy was impressing not just his classmates, but also his teachers. The school principal had even told Jennifer he'd never seen a student so mature and determined. One afternoon, Jacob came home with an unusual request. "Grandma, Dr. Jennifer, would you be up for a special trip with me?" "What kind of trip?" Mrs. Margaret asked, suspicious. "I want to visit the hospital in Chicago where I had my surgery. Not for treatment, but to talk to kids who are waiting for transplants," Jacob said excitedly. "I thought maybe my story could give them hope." Jennifer loved the idea. She contacted the hospital's medical team, who welcomed the proposal enthusiastically. They scheduled a visit for the following Saturday. On the day of the trip, Jacob was nervous, but in a good way. It was his first time back at the hospital since being discharged 2 years earlier. "Jacob, are you sure you want to do this?" Mrs. Margaret asked during the car ride. "I am, Grandma. Remember what you always taught me, that we should help others whenever we can. This is my way of helping." When they arrived at the hospital, they were greeted by Dr. Charlotte, the pediatric cardiologist who had treated Jacob during his stay. "Jacob, look how much you've grown." The doctor hugged him warmly. "And how are you feeling?" "Better than ever, doctor. I came here to try and help other kids." "That's a beautiful thing. We have 3 children here waiting for transplants. I'm sure they'll be happy to meet you." The first child they met was Emily, a 6-year-old who had been waiting for a heart for 8 months. She was playing with dolls when Jacob walked into the room. "Hi, Emily. My name is Jacob. Can I talk to you?" The little girl looked at him curiously. "Are you a doctor?" "Not yet. But I will be when I grow up." Jacob sat in the chair beside the bed. "You know, Emily, 2 years ago, I was in a room just like this, waiting for the same thing you are." "Really? What happened?" "A new heart came for me, from a very special boy who wanted to help others." Emily set her dolls aside and paid full attention to the conversation. "Did it hurt?" "The surgery? At first, yes, a little, but once it healed, I never felt pain again. On the contrary, I felt stronger than ever." Jacob showed the scar on his chest. "Want to see my superhero mark?" Emily laughed, gently touching the scar. "It looks like a drawn line." "That's exactly what it is. It's the mark that shows I'm special, that I went through an amazing adventure and came out a winner. When I have my surgery, will I get a mark like that?" "You sure will, and it'll be your heroine mark." Jennifer watched the conversation from the hallway, impressed by Jacob's sensitivity in handling children. He had found the perfect way to talk about it without scaring Emily. After speaking with Emily, Jacob visited 2 other boys, Peter, age 9, and Luke, age 12. With each one, he adapted his conversation to the child's age and personality. "Jacob, you have a natural talent for this," commented Dr. Charlotte. "Have you ever thought about working specifically with transplant children?" "Yes, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to be the doctor I wish I'd had, someone who understands what patients are feeling because they've been through it themselves." That's a valuable perspective. Few doctors have that personal experience. On the way home, Jacob was quiet, processing the emotions of the visit. "How did you feel, my son?" asked Mrs. Margaret. "I felt useful, Grandma, like I was really making a difference." Jacob looked out the window. "Those kids reminded me of how I felt when I was waiting. It was scary, but at the same time, I had hope." "And do you think you gave them hope too?" "I think so. At least I tried to show them that waiting is worth it, that fighting is worth it." Jennifer, who was driving, smiled as she listened to the conversation. Jacob was becoming exactly the kind of person the world needed, someone who turned their struggles into strength to help others. 2 weeks after the hospital visit, Jacob received a letter that moved him deeply. It was from Emily, the 6-year-old girl. "Dear Jacob, yesterday a heart came for me. The surgery was just like you said. It hurt a little at first, but now I'm okay. I have a superhero mark just like yours. Thank you for telling me everything would be all right. Love, Emily." Jacob showed the letter to Jennifer and Mrs. Margaret, his eyes shining with joy. "Grandma, look! Emily made it. How wonderful, my boy, and see how important you were in giving her strength. Can I call the hospital to see how she's doing?" "Of course you can." Jennifer was already dialing the number. Dr. Charlotte confirmed that Emily was recovering very well from the surgery. She had mentioned several times, "The boy Jacob who told me everything would be okay." "Doctor, can I ask something?" Jacob took the phone. "Can Emily have visitors?" "Yes, she can. In fact, I think she'd be very happy to see you." "Then can we visit her this weekend?" "Of course, I'll let the team know you're coming." The following Saturday, they made another trip to Chicago. Jacob had prepared a special gift for Emily, a book of superhero stories with a dedication written by him. "To Emily, the bravest little heroine I know. May your new heart take you on many amazing adventures. With love, Jacob." Emily was doing much better, playing in bed and chatting excitedly with her parents when Jacob arrived. "Jacob!" she shouted with joy. "You came to see me." "Of course I did. I had to meet the hospital's newest superhero." Jacob approached the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Great. Look at my scar." Emily lifted her shirt, proudly showing the still fresh mark. "Beautiful. Just like I said it would be." Jacob smiled. "And I brought you a gift." Emily carefully unwrapped the package and her eyes lit up when she saw the book. "It's a superhero storybook, just like you. Just like both of us now." Jacob sat in the chair. "Want me to read you a story?" "Yes." Jennifer watched the scene with a full heart. Jacob had found his true calling, using his experience to help other children going through what he had endured. After visiting Emily, Jacob made an important decision. He wanted to start a regular project visiting children who had undergone transplants or were waiting for one. "Dr. Jennifer, what if we created an official program? We could call it Connected Hearts or something like that." "That's a wonderful idea, Jacob. Let's talk to some hospitals about it." The Connected Hearts project was officially launched 6 months later with the support of 3 hospitals in the region. Jacob, now 16, became a kind of young ambassador for organ donation. Every week he visited at least one child, bringing books, games, and most importantly, his story of hope. The results were impressive. The children became more optimistic, more cooperative with their treatment, and more confident about the future. "Jacob has become a role model for our kids," a nurse commented. "They always ask when he's coming back." The project caught the attention of the local media. Jacob was invited to give interviews on radio stations and in newspapers, always accompanied by Jennifer. He spoke naturally about transplants, organ donation, and the importance of holding on to hope. During an interview with the local radio station, the host asked, "Jacob, what would you say to a child who just found out they need a transplant?" "I'd tell them they're about to embark on the most important adventure of their life. It'll be hard sometimes, but in the end, they'll come out stronger, braver, and with an amazing story to tell." Jacob answered without hesitation. "And that they're not alone. There's a whole family of people who've been through the same thing and are ready to help." "And what about the parents of these children?" "That it's okay to be scared, but their love is the most powerful medicine there is. And in the end, they'll discover they're stronger than they ever imagined." Jennifer, who was in the studio, felt proud seeing how Jacob had grown into such an eloquent and wise young man. The book, The Heart That Unites Families, was released on the 3rd anniversary of Jacob's surgery. The launch event took place at the very school he attended, with all the important people from his journey in attendance. 3 years ago, I was a sick, scared child with little hope for the future," Jacob addressed the emotional crowd. "Today, I'm a healthy young man, determined and full of plans. All thanks to the generosity of a family who, in their darkest moment, chose to turn their pain into hope for others." He looked at Jennifer, seated in the front row. "Dr. Jennifer, you didn't just give me a second mother. You gave me an example of courage, generosity, and unconditional love. Ethan may be gone physically, but his legacy lives on, not just in me, but in everyone our story has touched." The audience rose in applause. Jacob had become a mature speaker, capable of moving and inspiring people of all ages. Mrs. Margaret, now 70, stepped onto the stage to speak as well. 4 years ago, I was a desperate grandmother, watching my grandson waste away from an illness I couldn't cure. Her voice was steady but emotional. Today, I see a young man who has become a light in the lives of dozens of other families. Jacob, you fill me with pride every day. And I'm proud to have you as my family, Jacob said, embracing the two most important women in his life. The book was an instant success. Within 2 weeks, it was already on the bestseller list for non-fiction. But more important than the commercial success was the impact it was having. Jacob began receiving letters from people all over the country, sharing how his story had influenced their decisions about organ donation or given them strength to face personal hardships. "Jacob, look at this letter," Jennifer said, showing him one that had arrived from Oregon. "It's from a mother who decided to donate her son's organs after reading our book." "Really?" Jacob took the letter carefully. "Our story saved other lives?" "It seems so. This is the 5th similar letter we've received this week." Jacob fell silent for a moment, processing the magnitude of what was happening. "Dr. Jennifer, this means Ethan is saving even more lives through our story." "Exactly. His legacy is multiplying in ways we never imagined." With the book's success, Jacob was invited to give talks in other cities. Always accompanied by Jennifer or Mrs. Margaret, he traveled to Chicago, Colorado, and Washington, spreading his message of hope. In every city, the reaction was the same: moved audiences, long lines of people wanting to meet him in person, and always someone sharing a personal story about transplants or organ donation. "Jacob, you're becoming a celebrity," Jennifer teased during one trip. "I don't want to be a celebrity, I want to be useful," Jacob replied with the maturity that had become his trademark. "If people know me, it's because our story can help someone somewhere." At 17, Jacob was in his junior year of high school and intensively preparing for medical school entrance exams. His grades had always been excellent, but he didn't want to leave anything to chance. "Jennifer, sometimes I get nervous thinking about the exams," Jacob confessed during one of their study sessions. "It's normal to be nervous, but remember everything you've already faced and overcome. An entrance exam is much less scary than heart surgery." "That's true," Jacob smiled. "And besides, if I don't pass on the first try, I can try as many times as I need." "That's the right attitude, but I'm sure you'll pass." "Even if I do, it'll still be 6 years of medical school, then residency. It's a long road." "The best dreams always have long roads. That makes the achievement even more special." Jacob studied with impressive discipline, but never neglected his work with the Connected Hearts Project. He had learned to balance his studies with volunteering, understanding that both were important for his growth. One afternoon, while visiting a child at the hospital, Jacob received news that deeply moved him. "Jacob," Dr. Charlotte called him aside, "I need to tell you something very special." "What is it, Doctor?" "Do you remember Peter, that 9-year-old boy you met 2 years ago?" "Of course I remember. He was waiting for a heart. He got the transplant a year ago and is doing very well. And do you know what he told me yesterday?" "What?" "That he wants to be a doctor when he grows up, just like you. He said you changed his life." Jacob felt his eyes fill with tears. "Really? He said that?" "He did. And there's more. His mother reached out to ask if you could be a sort of mentor to him. She said Peter only talks about you when the topic is the future." Of course I can help him." "Great. I'll give your contact to his mother." That evening, Jacob shared the news with Jennifer and Mrs. Margaret during dinner. "Can you believe I'm about to have a little brother to guide now?" "It's wonderful, Jacob." Jennifer smiled. "You're building a real support network." "You know what this means?" Jacob was excited. "It means Ethan's story is spreading. Every child I help can help others in the future." "It's like an endless circle of kindness," Mrs. Margaret remarked. "Exactly, Grandma. And the coolest part is that it all started with Dr. Jennifer's brave decision to donate Ethan's organs." Jennifer felt her chest grow warm. There were still moments when she felt the pain of losing Ethan, but she knew she'd made the right choice. Seeing Jacob thriving and helping others was the greatest proof of that. Jacob's first meeting with Peter took place at the mall on a Saturday afternoon. Peter was with his parents, visibly nervous to meet his idol in person. "Hi, Peter. How are you?" Jacob crouched down to the boy's level. He was now 11. "Hi, Jacob. I'm good," Peter said shyly. Thanks for agreeing to meet me. Of course, I'm just happy to see you doing well. How's your recovery been? Good. I get my checkups, take my meds, and I'm back in school now. And how's that been? At first it was hard because I'd missed a lot, but now I'm catching up. Jacob talked with Peter for over an hour, offering advice about school, health, and especially how to handle classmates' curiosity about his scar and surgery. Peter, can I give you the most important advice of all? Sure. Never be ashamed of your story. You're a warrior who won a really tough battle. Your scar isn't a mark of weakness, it's a mark of courage. Is that what you always told yourself? Always. And it worked. Peter's parents watched the conversation with emotion. It was clear Jacob had become a guiding light for their son. Jacob, Peter's mother stepped forward. We can't thank you enough for what you're doing for Peter. Ever since he met you at the hospital, he's talked about following your example. Peter's a special kid. I know he'll achieve everything he dreams of. He wants to study medicine just like you. That's awesome, Jacob turned to Peter. Want to study together sometimes? I can help with the basics. Really? You'd do that? Of course, we're heart brothers, right? Peter laughed, perfectly understanding the play on words. From that day on, Jacob started meeting Peter regularly. Every Saturday, they'd gather at the public library to study. Jacob taught study techniques, helped with math and science, and most importantly, kept Peter motivated. Jacob, can I ask you something personal? Peter said during one study session. Go ahead. Do you miss your original heart? Jacob stopped writing and looked at Peter. It was a deep question for an 11-year-old. You know, Peter, I don't miss it because the heart I have now gave me a better life than I ever imagined. Jacob paused before continuing. It's like I didn't just get a new heart. I got a new life too. And you don't feel sad thinking about the boy who died? I don't feel sad, I feel grateful. Ethan didn't die just so I could live. He died in an accident, but his family chose to turn that tragedy into hope for others. Jacob touched his chest. Every beat of my heart is a tribute to their generosity. Peter stayed silent, absorbing Jacob's words. I want to be like you when I grow up. You don't want to be like me, Peter. You want to be the best version of yourself. Each of us has a unique and special story. Meanwhile, Jennifer continued to watch Jacob's growth with admiration. He had become a responsible, generous, and determined young man. Their visits to Ethan's grave at Pine Grove Cemetery were now always accompanied by stories of Jacob's achievements and the lives he was touching. Ethan, your Jacob is almost done with high school. Jennifer spoke to the headstone during one of these visits. He's still determined to become a doctor, and I'm sure he'll make it. You'd be so proud of the man he's becoming. Jacob, kneeling beside her and placing fresh flowers on the grave, added, And he's helping me take care of other kids, Ethan. Dozens of boys and girls have heard our story and felt stronger because of it. Your heart didn't just save me, it's saving so many others through what we do. They stayed there for a few minutes in thoughtful silence. These visits had become moments of reflection and gratitude for both of them. Jacob, can I ask you something? Jennifer said as they walked back to the car. Of course. Have you thought about what you'll do when you become a doctor? Where do you want to work? I have, actually. Jacob smiled. I want to go back to the University Medical Center where I had my surgery. I want to work in pediatric transplants and create an official support program for kids who've had transplants. That's a wonderful plan. And I want you to be my partner in this project. After all, who better than a mother who's been through it all to help other families? Tears of joy streamed down Jennifer's face. It would be an honor to work with you, Jacob. Then it's a promise. In a few years, we'll be saving lives together and turning pain into hope. The medical school entrance exam came faster than they expected. Jacob had prepared intensely throughout his senior year and felt confident, though naturally nervous. The night before the test, Mrs. Margaret hosted a special dinner with all the important people in his journey. Jennifer, teacher Mrs. Wilson, Dr. Charlotte, who had come from Chicago just to support him, and Peter with his parents. Jacob, tomorrow is a big day, but remember, no matter the result, you're already a winner, Mrs. Margaret said, raising a toast. Thank you, Grandma, and thank you all for being here. You're my chosen family, and your support gives me strength for any challenge." "You'll do great," Peter said, "and when you're a doctor, I'll be there too." "I'll be waiting, little brother." On exam day, Jacob woke up early, had a calm breakfast, and headed to the university with Jennifer and Mrs. Margaret. At the test center's entrance, they hugged him and wished him luck. "Go with God, my son," Mrs. Margaret said. "And remember, you have the heart of a hero," Jennifer added. Jacob walked into the exam room calm and determined. During the 5-hour test, he thought of Ethan, all the children he'd met in hospitals, Peter, and his dream of becoming a doctor that had stayed with him since his surgery. When he finished, Jacob felt good. Not euphoric, but confident he'd done his best. "How was it?" Jennifer and Mrs. Margaret asked anxiously. "It went well. I answered everything, and the questions weren't too different from what I studied." Jacob smiled. "Now we wait for the results." The 2 months of waiting felt like an eternity. Jacob tried to stay calm, continuing his normal routine, visits to the hospital, meetings with Peter, and even some lectures he had scheduled before the exam. At one of these lectures, an older woman approached him after the event. "Jacob, my grandson received a liver transplant 6 months ago. After we read your book and watched your talks, he became much more hopeful about the future." "That's wonderful. How is he feeling?" "Very well. And you know what else?" "Oh, what?" "He said he wants to meet you in person. Could that happen?" Jacob never said no to these requests. His schedule was always full of meetings with children and families who had been touched by his story in some way. "Of course. Let's set something up." The college acceptance results came out on a Thursday morning. Jacob was at school when Jennifer called with the news. "Jacob! Jacob! You got in!" Her voice was euphoric on the other end of the line. "Really?" Jacob could hardly believe it. "Really? And not just barely. You were in the top 10. Jacob sat down in the school office chair, feeling a mix of relief, joy, and gratitude. He had done it. He was going to be a doctor. "Dr. Jennifer, are you sure?" "Absolutely. I'm looking at the results right here on the computer. Jacob Parker accepted into medical school." Jacob hung up the phone and stayed silent for a few seconds, absorbing the news. Then a huge smile spread across his face. The news spread quickly. Mrs. Margaret cried with joy when she heard. Teacher Mrs. Wilson announced it at school, and all his classmates congratulated him. Peter called, shouting with happiness. That night, they threw a party at Mrs. Margaret's house. Jacob had specifically asked for a simple celebration, with only the people who truly mattered to him. 5 years ago, I was a sick child, with little hope for the future, Jacob said in a speech to the guests. Today, I'm a future doctor, thanks to the generosity of a family, the love of a grandmother and a second mother, and the support of all of you. He looked at the photo of Ethan that Jennifer had brought and placed on the main table. Ethan, you wanted to be a superhero. Now I'm going to be a doctor. We'll keep saving lives together. The party was joyful but emotional. Everyone understood the magnitude of what Jacob had achieved, not just academically, but in terms of personal triumph. A week later, Jacob, Jennifer, and Mrs. Margaret made a special visit to Pine Grove Cemetery. They brought white flowers and a small card with the news of his acceptance. Ethan, Jacob said to the headstone, I got into medical school. I'll be studying at the same university where Dr. Jennifer studied, and one day I'll work saving other children just like you saved me. Jennifer knelt beside Jacob. Ethan, my son, your generous heart is making dreams come true, dreams neither you nor I ever imagined. Jacob became the son I gained when I lost you, and now he's going to become the doctor you always wanted to be as a hero. Mrs. Margaret also stepped closer. Ethan, a boy I never met but love like a grandson, thank you for saving my Jacob's life and for bringing Dr. Jennifer into our family. You brought together 3 people who love each other and will honor your memory forever. They stayed there for an hour, talking about future plans, remembering special moments from the past few years, and giving thanks for all the blessings they had received. As they were leaving the cemetery, Jacob stopped and looked back one last time. You know, Dr. Jennifer, I don't feel like I'm leaving Ethan here. I feel like I'm taking him with me to college. to every adventure I'll ever have. That's exactly how it is, Jacob. Ethan will always be with you, in every beat of your heart. And now we begin a new chapter in our story. The chapter where the boy who was saved becomes the man who saves others. I'm so proud of you, Jacob, and I know Ethan is too. Jacob smiled, wrapped his arm around Jennifer's shoulders, and together they walked toward the future they had built with love, courage, and so much hope. The end. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story of resilience and family. If you've had experiences with organ donation or know someone who has gone through a transplant, share your heartfelt words with us in the comments. Do you think Jennifer made the right decision? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this journey of love that turned pain into hope. Thank you so much for being here with us. Don't forget to like this video, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other moving stories like this one.